Welcome back to the American Superbike Show. I'm your host, Stitch Turner, and what a fantastic weekend of racing from MotoAmerica. It's lovingly called America's National Park of Speed, and the action at the front in so many of the races really lived up to that this weekend. And plus, for the second year in a row, they set a new record for largest attendance ever at a motorcycle event held at that track. I've talked ad nauseum before about how impressed I am with MotoAmerica and the ways that they've run this championship since taking over more than a decade ago now. And things like Road America setting a new attendance record for a motorcycle event for the second consecutive year not only backs that up, but it also gives a little bit of credence to the thought that, not only has the top level of motorcycle road racing climbed a very big hill to just get back to where they used to be, but maybe in some ways they have maybe even surpassed even the best at times from the good old days. Things like the money from sponsorships is still not the same. But like fan involvement is there again. And being able to go to 3 of the first 4 races this season, I can say for sure that people are not only at the track, but a lot of them are there in gear for their favorite rider or team or manufacturer. It's one thing to just have people there, but each one of the races so far this year have been attended heavily by people who actually care. And that makes a huge difference in my mind. So before we go any further, I want to mention my sponsor, Riding Times. You go to ridingtimes.com and use the promo code SBK5 and you get an additional 5% off of, they got a lot of e-bikes and mini motos and dirt bikes. I personally believe that this place is just the best value for your electric dirt bike, whatever you're looking for. I personally have a GT73 and I really do look forward to one day taking my GT73 up to Road America to ride around the track whenever I do finally get to visit that place. Even though I have to admit my my body is not the biggest fan of cheese, I've long felt that the people of Wisconsin are just, my kind of people. There's beer and bratwurst and road racing and football and, after you wash it down with a couple of glasses of brandy, what more do you really need in life? All right, well, before we go any further into a review of the races that happened this weekend at Road America, we're going to go ahead and take care of our mailbag. We did have a question that was submitted by Reddit user Cool and Nice Dev. Now, his question is, I've always been curious about the cost of racing with MotoAmerica for different classes, which are quote-unquote affordable, if any. I thought Super Sport was supposed to be one of the more approachable classes, but after talking with a few of my local shops, that does not appear to be the case. What does it take as a club racer to enter one of the MotoAmerica rounds? Well, first off, thank you very much for your question. I think this question is best broken down into 3 categories. And these categories are your fees, your consumables, and then, the motorcycle itself. I'm not going to get into all the things like food, lodging, plus whatever compensation you may have to give your crew because, you could just live down the street from a track, pack a lunch every day and snacks, and just have your friend helping you out for free. Okay, so we're going to start off with the fees because fees are easy. And not only are the fees easy, they're probably cheaper than you expect. One requirement is that you have to be a member of the AMA. So I guess you could count the $50 a year cost for that membership as part of your entry fees. But otherwise, the classes with the cheapest entry fees are for the racers in Talent Cup, Super Hooligans, King of the Baggers, and Superbike Cup. For those classes, the cost of entry, it's only $350 for the entire race weekend if you purchase the weekends individually one by one. So, Twins Cup is $600 per race weekend, but Super Sport and Super Bike, they're only $400 for each weekend. There are full season options, but, and typically when you pay for the whole season at once, you get a little bit of a discount, a break in price. But with a lot of their full season packages, they typically actually start to cost more, because they include a lot more of the amenities for the teams, things like RV spots, parking passes, pit credentials, et cetera, scooter stickers, all that kind of stuff. So if you're just a club racer and you're looking to just enter yourself in a weekend, the bare minimum, you're looking at $350 if you're going for one of those the cheaper classes. As far as consumables, you're only allowed to use a maximum of 6 set of tires for the whole weekend, I believe. So 6 sets of tires works out to 12 individual tires and at about $225 per tire. It does differ depending on the class because, Talent Cup tires are a lot smaller than Super Sport and Superbike tires, and fronts are cheaper than rears, but we're just going to go with a number of $225 a tire. So 12 tires, that works out to about $2,700 for the weekend. Now, on top of that, you can also add the Spec VP Racing fuel. You have to purchase that at the track, and that's the only fuel you're allowed to use. You can't just bring your own. And you can expect to pay about $400 to $500 a weekend for that as well. And now finally, this is the biggest expense, and that's the bike. This part of the equation is kind of like asking the question, how long is a piece of string? Because there's just no real set answer to how much a bike can cost fully prepared. Just like as, the piece of string is however long it is however long you cut it. There's no matter how much somebody spends building their bike, somebody else will come along and spend more money to build the same bike. Personally, I think that Super Sport can be a great value, but that kind of depends on the bike that you're using. A lot of the competitors use the Suzuki GSX-R 750 because not only is its initial purchase price a little bit on the lower side for the class, but the 750 motor is actually detuned to bring the power back down to the level of more of like a 600. And because the motor is so under stress, it's not unheard of for competitors to go more than a full season before having an engine rebuilt. The same is true as about the Ducati in regards to the engine. The 955cc V-twin is also very under stress to bring the performance down to the level of a 600 four-banger. And therefore, it tends to have, a high level of longevity. But, that bike is a little bit more expensive in the initial purchase price. And I also want to throw this out there just because it kind of baffles my mind. I feel like, okay, we're using therapy words here. If I've explained the therapy words before, but every comic book is somebody's first. And so basically it's I think, I feel, I know. I know means this is fact, like I've had it confirmed, like I know this to be true beyond any doubt. I feel is I'm pretty sure this is the case. I have heard some things, but I don't know it to be confirmed. And then I think is just like I said, it's I think that's what I'm thinking of. So using our therapy words, I feel like the cost is the same to build a competitive Twins Cup machine as it is to build a good super sport bike. You do a lot of the same things, like change the suspension, the wheels, and while super sport machines have a designated package of parts that you throw on to meet the homologation, like electronic throttle controller and things like that and whatnot, on a Twins Cup machine, you have more freedom to just spend money freely on building the best motor you can. In the end, the price of the bike in both classes can range anywhere from $15,000 to like double that. But a big difference is with the Twins Cup motors, they're being pushed more to their limit. And so you see a lot more things like engine failures that can definitely deplete someone's budget quickly. But outside of those two classes, though, to me, I think the class that is the most approachable has got to be Super Hooligans. Those bikes also cost in the same neighborhood as Twins and Super Sport to build, and they have a lot of the same kind of balancing rules that Super Sport does, and that helps with, keeps the cost down. But to me, just look at the size of those fields. Super Hooligans has far and away been the class with the most riders at each round that it's at. And the ones that have taken place so far this year, and I think it's going to continue for the next couple of rounds that we're going to go to next with the Ridge and Laguna Seca. I think you're going to see tons of riders there in that class. I wouldn't be surprised if at either one of those rounds they have to split the field into A and B groups for qualifying like they have to do at Daytona, and honestly probably should have done at Barber just because there are so many riders. So that's a quick and basic look into the cost of running a MotoAmerica event. Thank you for the question to Cool and Nice Dev. I really do appreciate it. And now let's get into reviewing the races that happened this past weekend. And we're going to start with Superbike. And Cameron Beaubier won pole for the second race in a row. However, when race one came around, he got another poor start. I don't know what the issue is on the starts, but it's just something that the Warhorse team hasn't been able to figure out yet with, at least on Beaubier's Ducati Panigale V4R. PJ Jacobsen, he was able to use his Ducati to get the whole shot at the start. And then, on the second lap, Beaubier was able to move up into second behind him, while at the same time, Richie Escalante went down on lap 2. And then, but like after 2 full laps of race 1, we had a front group of riders that still included 7 people. Like, oh my goodness. I know I say this a lot, but like there was just so many days where from the start of the race, you would have 2 attack Yamahas at the front, maybe a Suzuki, and I don't know, a Ducati, I guess. And now, here at the front of this race, we had PJ Jacobsen on a Rahal Ducati, Sean Dillon Kelly on a factory-supported BMW, Cam Beaubier on a factory-supported Ducati, Cam Peterson on last year's Ducati, and then we had JD Beach on a factory-supported Attack Yamaha, Bobby Fong on a factory-supported Attack Yamaha, Matthew Skoltz was at the front with, I believe it's factory-supported Strack Racing Yamaha R1. So that's 7 different riders on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different teams and 3 different manufacturers all in the front group still after 2 full laps of Road America. So that's like, 3, 4, 5 laps of it at a lot of other tracks. Sean Dillon Kelly was able to take the lead with 10 laps to go, but PJ retook the lead into turn 1 after the start of the next lap. But then PJ's bike, man, he started to get the shakes with like 8 to go, and it did not look fun. But like, for me personally, if I was on a track at that speed and a bike started shaking underneath me like that, I would probably have to just go ahead and stop and pull over and then just sit down and cry a little bit before I could continue. And PJ is just like, nah, I'm just going to keep it in 7th place because he has a ridiculous amount of talent. I don't know how he was able to keep that bike there. The red flag definitely helped him out that when it came out in a couple laps later. But let me also just say this, because PJ's definitely getting over the setbacks from the start of the year. Michael Gooden is the crew chief on that motorcycle, and he's been PJ's crew chief since they arrived together at Rahal Ducati Moto team. Their history of working together and being able to communicate effectively with each other is probably a big reason they've been able to make big leaps over from where they started the season in Atlanta, despite not having a lot of track time. And I think that's something that's going to continue for the rest of the season. You're going to start seeing PJ at the front more consistently on that Ducati Panigale V4R. All right, well, with 6 laps to go, Cameron Beaubier got out to the front, and he was starting to pull away a little bit. And Cam Peterson moved up to 2nd place to try and take up the chase, but then Cam Beaubier went down, and that little kink inside the chicane at where the kink used to be. What his explanation is, he didn't let go of the handlebars, and so when he hit the ground, he dislocated his right shoulder. Now, let me tell you something. I have also dislocated my right shoulder. It was easily the most painful injury I have ever had in my life. And I've broken bones and torn ligaments and just all sorts of things. I've been stabbed, not like in a knife kind of way. I've been stabbed by just things doing maintenance work. Don't get too carried away with that statement. But, I've had things stabbed into me, and just dislocating my shoulder was easily the most painful thing that I had ever did. And so you could just tell just the way he was standing there, because he was in a lot of pain, and you could just tell he didn't know what to do about it. And it just, I remember being there. It sucks so bad. With Beaubier having his shoulder problems, he wasn't able to pick up the bike that was laying on the edge of the track, and it just wasn't a good spot for the corner workers to get out there. And so the red flag came out with 6 laps to go. When they did, before I go on, I will say that I don't know exactly what the recovery period for Cam Beaubier will be. But they haven't said anything officially, but just going on my own personal experience, I'm willing to bet you we will see Cam Beaubier at the Ridge, and he will probably line up a race, and he will probably not be 100% by the time we get there, because it takes a little while to recover from. I don't know, but he's in a lot better shape than I am. So, like, who knows? He might recover a lot quicker. When the race did restart, Bobby Fong was able to get the whole shot on there, and he was followed by Sean Dillon Kelly, Cam Peterson, PJ Jacobson, JD Beach, and Matthew Skoltz. But, Sean Dillon Kelly was able to make a ballsy move for the lead and going into turn 6, and then Cam Peterson was able to make the move into the lead with 3 laps to go. And from there, he pretty much was able to hold it off until the end. But through that, like, whole last few laps, like, just that group at the front, we had, a BMW, 2 Ducatis, and 2 Yamahas that were all still battling at the front, and it was just so awesome. I mean, I'm pretty sure that this is what illegal drugs feel like. Just watching this on TV just gave me that same sort of just feeling. On the last lap, Sean Dillon Kelly was able to just get in front of the lead in Canada corner, but Cam Peterson was able to take it back pretty much immediately, and he was able to hold it to the line. And his margin of victory, Cam Peterson won by 0.067 seconds over Sean Dillon Kelly in second place. Bobby Fong was 0.099 seconds back, and PJ was also within a second back of Cameron Peterson at the line. He was only 0.849 seconds back from the leader in 4th place. So the top 4 were all covered within 1 second. That's a hell of a race, and I don't care what class or track you're talking about. 5th place was JD Beach, and then in 6th place was Matthew Skoltz. And even Matthew Skoltz having an off day and where he's just not really feeling competitive and doesn't seem to have it, he was still within 5 seconds of the win in 6th. Andrew Lee was the victor in the Superbike Cup class for the race. And then after the race was over, the way our points shook up, so Matthew Skoltz was on top, and he had 105 points. Second place was Sean Dillon Kelly, and he was 24 points back. So as long as Sean Dillon Kelly didn't win race 2, or as long as Matthew was able to just score a single point on Sunday, Matthew Skoltz knew that he was going to be able to leave Wisconsin with the championship lead intact. Well, then what happened? We get to race 2, and in race 2, we didn't have any Cam Beaubier or Benjamin Smith, so we didn't have either of the Warhorse Ducatis. Benjamin Smith, poor guy, he just had some terrible luck. It was in the qualifying session, I believe. I'm sure you've seen the replay of that nasty crash, and it was scary, just the way the bike bounced off the air fence and back into him. And what initiated the whole thing, because the first time I saw the replay, I noticed that front tire was flat when the camera was already, like, by the time they put the camera on the bike, all the way at the top of that hill going into 5. So they shouldn't even be towards the heaviest braking point of that braking zone yet. You could see that Benjamin Smith's front tire was already flat. On Instagram, he thankfully gave us a good little explanation of what happened. And apparently a part fell off of the bike in front of him. And Smith just wasn't able to avoid it. And he didn't just hit it. It went through his tire, through the rim, and it immediately broke the bead on the tire, and that's why you saw it get so deflated so quickly, and you could just tell that the thing was done. But it also apparently locked up the tire completely. And all of that probably happened to the guy while he was doing like 100 and God knows what miles an hour into a braking zone. So that had to be just a scary incident, and I'm glad that Smith was able to get up and, well, He's fine now, and I think he's going to be back in time for the Ridge. Well, let's put it that way. He ended up having to sit out the weekend again, and just for the second weekend in a row, it just hasn't been the start that he was looking for. And it's a shame, too, because when he is out there, he's running in the top 10, top 5-ish. Like, he's doing... You could tell where he has been putting in the work and the practice to improve out there on the track and run with his teammate. He just hasn't had a chance to show it yet because of just all these unfortunate events just keep piling up. All right, so no Cam Beaubier and no Benjamin Smith for race 2. So because of that, PJ Jacobson got the start from the pole position. JD Beach was able to get the whole shot though initially, and he was in front away from the line and leading into turn one, but then PJ was able to kind of squeak by on the entry going into turn one and take the lead from there. And so we had PJ Jacobsen, JD Beach in second, Sean Dillon Kelly in third after the start, Bobby Fong in fourth, Matthew Skoltz in fifth, and Cam Peterson in sixth place. JD Beach, he took the lead for the first time at the chicane going into the kink on the first lap. But then when we came back around to the front straight again, PJ just motored right by him on the front straight. Later on lap 2, Sean Dillon Kelly was able to also pass JD Beach going into turn 5, and he was able to hang on to the back of PJ Jacobsen from there, and the two of them kind of opened up a gap on the rest of everyone else. A lap later, JD Beach was able to close that gap, however, but it was pretty much just those guys out in the front for the rest of the race. PJ Jacobsen then, unfortunately, he went wide in turn 5 with about 8 laps to go, and that let Sean Dillon Kelly by, so he was out in front. But at that same time, Matthew Skoltz, our championship points leader, had his motor unfortunately just expire between turns 4 and 5 going into that straight, the long straight that goes into turn 5. And so just like that, all the work that Matthew Skoltz put in at the beginning of the year, winning 3 of the first 4 races and building up just a little bit of a comfortable championship lead one weekend, and it was all gone with just a 6th place finish and then a DNF in race 2. Let's see here. You know what? At the final lap, this was another great final lap in race 2, just like in race 1. We only had 4 riders at the front for the final lap, and it was Sean Dillon Kelly, PJ Jacobsen, JD Beach, and Bobby Fong, but they put on a hell of a battle, and it was kind of a little bit more of a 2-and-2 scenario. You had Sean Dillon Kelly and PJ, and then just like a little bit of a gap of JD and Bobby Fong kind of facing each other. But at the line, Sean Dillon Kelly was able to get the victory. PJ was in 2nd place, finishing 0.381 seconds back. 3rd place went to Bobby Fong. He managed to put in a good move on JD Beach to take the final podium spot on the last lap. JD held on for 4th place. And 5th place was Cam Peterson, our Saturday Race 1 winner. And then in 6th place was Hayden Gillum. It was Richie Escalante. And then coming up the front straight to the line, there's that big hill that, right when they crest the hill going under that bridge, Escalante, his bike damn near looped over backwards on him, popped a wheelie heading that hill. And it's been a long time since I've seen any of the Superbikes, actually with all the electronics that they're running today, like it's been a long time since I've seen that happen to anyone at the track. Let's see here. Superbike Cup was once again won by Andrew Lee, and he's got just a huge lead in the Superbike Cup point standings now because of it. Let's see here. How much? Yeah, if my math is correct, he has a 63-point lead over Carl Soltis now in 2nd place. Dion Campbell did not have the best weekend, so he's now dropped down to 3rd in the Superbike Cup standings. But our points for Superbike, leaving Wisconsin, it is now Sean Dillon Kelly. He is leading the championship chase. He has 106 points, and then 1 point behind him with 105 is Matthew Skoltz for the Strack Racing Yamaha R1. Bobby Fong is now in 3rd place with 80 points, and JD Beach is in 4th with 73. And then 3 points back from JD Beach, you have Cam Peterson with 70, and Richie Escalante wraps up the top 6 with 49 points, 57 back from Sean Dillon Kelly. And notice one name that we didn't include in there, and that's Cam Beaubier, because he's no longer in the top 6 after scoring no points on the weekend. So he's got... I think at this point, the deficit for Cam Beaubier to win the championship overall is probably just too big to overcome. Well, let's move on to Supersport. Supersport, the pole was taken by Tyler Scott, and he did so by setting a new track record with a time of 2 minutes, 15.961 seconds. In race 1, though, Kayla Yakov, man, she held the lead at the end of lap 1. She used that double bike draft going into turn 5 to make double pass to go into the lead. And there wasn't really a clear breakaway at the front for a good while. I mean, Josh Herron and Darren Bender were able to get by Kayla on lap 3, but like the whole group of like 5, 6, 7 riders, however many it was at the front, actually maybe even more than that, because as as far as I kept looking down the camera shots behind them, there just never seemed to be an appreciable gap developed between any of the riders going, all the way down the field, and for at least the first few laps of the race. On lap 3, Aiden Sneed unfortunately went off in turn 10, but you know what? The 3D Motorsports team still had a pretty good weekend for them because they were able to get 3 top 10s overall between their 2 riders, and Alex Enriquez and Aiden Sneed. Enriquez got 2 top 10 in both races, so good for them. At 8 laps to go, we finally started to have a breakaway of the usual 4 at the front of the field. But behind them, there were 3 Yamaha R9s that were just able to keep them in sight with Max Girardo, Josh Hayes, and Dominic Doyle. By about 5 laps later, though, when there was 3 laps to go, those Yamahas were starting to get a little bit more strung out and left behind. It was just the 4 at the front of the field. And it was the same 4 we've had at the front of the field all year long, with Josh Herrin, Darren Bender, Kayla Yakov, and Tyler Scott. 2 laps to go, Ty Scott tried to make a move on the outside of Josh Herrin and for second going into turn 1, and it was just a little bit too much, a little bit too wide, and he ended up laying the bike down. He did do a hell of a job, though, getting up and getting to the bike and getting going again, because he managed to stay in the points and finish P12. With 2 laps to go, he crashed, but he still got points. That's not nothing. It could be something that could be very valuable at the end of the year when the championship goes. On 1 lap to go, Josh Herrin, he went wide in that same turn 1, and he gave a very refreshing, honest explanation about it in the post-race interview, and especially because they're trying to do so much in their mind about, strategizing for the race in the last lap. He just missed his brake marker. I mean, we've all done stuff like that before. Don't hate. Because of that, Darren Bender was able to win easy, and Josh Herrin was just over 2.5 seconds behind him in second place. And third place was Kayla Yakov, and Max Girardo managed to finish 4th, with Josh Hayes in 5th and Dominic Doyle in 6th place for the 3 Yamahas. In race 2, Tyler Scott got the whole shot, but Josh Herrin was able to get by him at the front of the field in turn 5. On that first lap, Max Girardo, he had a bit of a fast crash in the carousel on lap 1, but he seems to be okay from it. But it was, a little bit of a scary incident. Tyler Scott was able to retake the lead at the line after that first lap, and then Josh Hayes on lap 2, at 51 years old, decided, you know what, I'm just going to go out and lead a MotoAmerica race today. And he took the lead going into turn 5. I love that man. I hope he never quits. Going into the race, we ended up not really having a 6-rider breakaway at the front. It was more of a 3+3 kind of situation going on, because you had a group of Darren Bender, Josh Herrin, and Josh Hayes were like the first 3 group, and they were kind of battling amongst themselves. And then the second group of 3 of Tyler Scott, Kayla Yakov, and Blake Davis, who weren't really, separated, but they were also kind of just focused on those 3 were also just focused on each other rather than trying to being able to attack the group in front of them. So just kind of 2 little groups of 3 battle going on there at the front of the field. With 5 laps to go, Josh Herrin unfortunately went down in the carousel. And then after that, we get to the line. Josh falling in the carousel made it to where when they get to the line with 4 laps to go, it was Darren Bender out front. And Tyler Scott had over 4 seconds behind him. And then Kayla Yakov, followed by Josh Hayes, Blake Davis, and Alessandro DiMario. From that point on, with 4 laps to go, Darren Bender just kept increasing his lead at the front, running by himself. Because the 3 behind him ended up kind of, Scott, Yakov, and Hayes ended up battling with each other. And then once they started fighting with each other, not only did it allow Darren Bender to run away at the front, but then Blake Davis started catching up from behind them and kind of started to join that fight as well. At the end of the race, at the line, Darren Bender was able to win comfortably by over 8 seconds. Second place was Tyler Scott. Third was Kayla Yakov, and she was behind Ty Scott. She was only 0.032 seconds behind him at the line. and then another 0.076 seconds back to the next rider of Josh Hayes in fourth place. And then Blake Davis was in fifth, and he was only 0.005 seconds behind Josh Hayes at the line. So just a tight group from second down to fifth. Was a hell of a battle to watch, an exciting finish. And then Alessandro Di Mario was able to round out the top six, bringing home his Ray Hall Ducati Moto machine. So the points in Supersport leaving Wisconsin. Darren Bender is still at the front. Well, now he has a little bit more of a healthier gap back to second place in Josh Herron. Bender has 153 points to Herron's 119, so it's a 34-point gap. Kayla Yakov is in third place with 110 points, and then fourth place is Ty Scott with 109, only 1 point behind Kayla. And then a little bit more of a gap back to fifth place, Blake Davis with 75 points, and then Josh Hayes is in sixth place in points with 56. Moving on from Supersport, we're going to go to King of the Baggers, where Hayden Gillum won the pole, and he also set a new track record with a 2:16.175 second lap time. Now, coming into this weekend, the Supersport track record was a 2:16.4 before it was reset by Ty Scott during qualifying. Hayden Gillum was able to break that old Supersport record on a bagger machine that weighs over 620 pounds. And not only was he able to break the old Supersport track record, he's still only within like 2/10 of the now current Supersport track record on that machine. That's a hell of an impressive time. At the end of the second qualifying session, they did the little challenge race. It was only a 2-lap race, but Kyle Wyman was able to get out front early and just kind of cruise to an easy win in the challenge race. It doesn't give any points, but picks up a nice little $5,000 check to the winner. And race one, Kyle Wyman was able to get the whole shot again. And when they left the line and started going through turns 1 and then 2 and 3, the order was Kyle Wyman out front with Hayden Gillum behind him, and then Benjamin Smith, and then a little bit of a small gap back to Troy Herfoss. On lap 2, Kyle Wyman ran his fastest race time of the weekend, and it was like a 2-minute, 17-second flat. But then Hayden Gillum was able to take the lead going into turn 5 with 4 to go. And after he did that, he immediately opened a gap by running times almost a second below that every single lap. He was running in the 2:16s consistently from there throughout the end of the race. So he was just able to, get by and then open up a nice little healthy lead before the end. Bradley Smith was assessed a 1.39 second penalty for cutting the track, but it didn't really do anything to change the finishing order. So at the end of the race 1, it was Hayden Gillum in first with Kyle Wyman behind him. He was a little bit, 2.213 seconds back, so almost 2.25 seconds back behind Hayden Gillum. Bradley Smith was able to finish in third place, and then fourth was Trey Herfoss, and fifth place was Tyler O'Hara, and sixth was James Rispoli. In race 2, Maxwell Toth, he was filling in for Jake Lewis at the Saddlemen Race Development Team. He wasn't able to take the start because of electrical issues, but man, he was improving them like every session throughout the weekend, and he might have been challenging up there for the front 6 if he was able to take the start. James Rispoli, unfortunately, he also had to start from pit lane, but he had a nice recovery going throughout the race. Kyle Wyman was once again able to get a hell of a start and got the whole shot going into turn 1, and he was followed by Hayden Gillum, Bradley Smith, Troy Herfoss, Tyler O'Hara, and Kyle Onsoer. He also got a good start and was running in 6th place going down towards turn 5 in the opening lap. But Hayden Gillum was able to take the lead by the end of the opening lap, and he had a small gap even before they got to Canada corner. Troy Herfoss went wide in turn 5 on lap 2, but he managed to keep 4th position. But then Kyle Wyman also went wide in turn 5 and on the last lap. But he managed to also keep it up and stay in 3rd place. And, with all this going on, throughout the weekend, the one thing that just stayed in my mind, I think these bikes are pretty balanced now. Okay. And like I said in the last, or I don't remember if it was the last episode or not, but when you're dealing with classes like baggers and Supersport, where they're trying to intentionally create a rule set to balance different motorcycles, it is just hard to do. But when you look at the front now, you have a healthy mix of Harley Davidson and Indian. I just think that also, though, Hayden Gillum is just better than everyone else this year. Like, he's just on fire. And like I said before the race, I didn't think the changes for Harley Davidson would really make a difference because Hayden Gillum is just that good. I think that held true. He dominated race 2 and managed to come to a victory, winning by over 3.7 seconds over Bradley Smith in second place. Kyle Wyman was able to finish third, and Troy Horvath was in fourth place, with with O'Hara finishing fifth, and then James Rispoli. After starting from pit lane, he was able to come home sixth place again for the second time in the weekend, and that's a pretty good. When you're talking about a class that was only running 10, 11, 12 bikes in the first place, and you're starting from the pit lane, but in on a track where power is everything and drafting, and just for Rispoli to start from the pit lane, be at such a disadvantage from the start, and be able to just catch up to the field and one by one pick his way back up to sixth place in such a short race is just really impressive to me. What was not impressive was Hayden Gillum crashed on the cool down lap. Dude, he had such a weekend. He set the track record. He won race 1. He won race 2. But he still managed to just have just a little bit of adversity by crashing on the cool down lap. That turn 6 on the way it's off camber. It's easy to see how you could do it, but it made me chuckle a little bit. It's still making me chuckle a little bit. Who am I kidding? So our points leaving Wisconsin is Hayden Gillum is all alone up top with 132 points now, and he's opened up a little bit gap to Troy Horvath, who's now 25 points behind at the 107. Bradley Smith is the highest place in Harley Davidson in championship points, as we are right now. He has 91 points, and he's 41 back of Hayden. Kyle Wyman's in fourth place with 77, and then Tyler O'Hara is in fifth, and then James Rispoli is in sixth place with 62 points. Twins Cup on the weekend. Hank Vosberg, he won the pole by over a second over Jody Berry, which, welcome back, Jody Berry. And race 1, though, Bodie Page, he was able to get the whole shot into turn 1, and he was followed by, closely by Hank Vosberg and Matthew Chapin. But, Hank was able to take the lead on the straight going into 5, but it seemed like every time Hank Vosberg was able to do that, Bodie Page would just let go of the brake lever before anyone else and just outbrake everyone. It just, no matter how much Vosberg was able to draft out, not just alongside him, but a lot of times past him, Bodie Page was just a demon on the brakes going into turn 5. And he was able, it allowed him to very much so just control the pace of the race from the front of the field. And just, it was a masterclass in racecraft, excuse me. 2 laps in, there was a lead group of 5 riders at the front, and then a second group of 4 that was not very far behind them. You had Bodie Page running in the front group, followed by Hank Vosberg, Jody Berry, and Matthew Chapin, and Maddie Salem, which welcome Maddie Salem, former Mini Cup competitor, making I think this is their MotoAmerica debut. I do know it was their first Twins Cup race for this season, and they've been running like the the Latin Moto 3 Cup, or what, the same one that Kenzie Matsudaira is running, the South America with Team Roberts. I know Maddie Salem, I think, has been running a couple of races in there. But so welcome to MotoAmerica, Maddie Salem running up there at the front pack. And there was a little slight gap, and they were followed by another pack that was Isaac Woodworth, Sam Drain, Kevin Olmedo, and Logan Cunnison. Over the next couple of laps, though, Isaac Woodworth managed to break away from the second pack and then catch up to the first pack. So he kind of jumped from the back pack to the front pack over the next couple of laps going into the race. With 4 laps to go, there was 3 at the front, and it was followed by it was more of another 3-and-3 situation, kind of like we had in Super Sport. And the 3 in the front were Vosberg, Page, and Jody Berry. And then the second 3 was Matthew Chapin, Maddie Salem, and Isaac Woodworth. But like I said before, throughout the whole race, Bodie Page, he was just able to consistently outbrake everyone else in the corners, especially 5, and he used that very smartly to just control the pace of the race from the front wherever possible, and he brought home his first victory in Twins Cup. He did so by beating Jody Berry to the line. Berry was only 0.047 seconds back at the line, and then Hank Vosberg was only 0.149 seconds back from the victory. So really close group of 3. They were followed by Matthew Chapin in 4th, Matty Salem in 5th, and Kevin Olmedo in 6th place. When we came back on Sunday for race 2, Bodie Page was able to get the whole shot again, and after one lap, he was out front with Hank Vosberg behind him. Isaac Woodworth was in 3rd place, and Matthew Chapin, Matty Salem, and Kevin Olmedo were also right there with the front group. And just like, race 1, race 2 was very much a copy of race 1 through a lot of it, because Bodie Page was able to just get out in front, and he did a hell of a job of using his racecraft and controlling the pace from the front of the field and not breaking everyone into turns. And also like race 1, pretty much 2 groups of 3 developed at the front again. But this time, the front group was Hank Vosberg, Bodie Page, and Isaac Woodworth, and the second group was Jody Berry, Matthew Chapin, and Kevin Olmedo. With 3 laps to go, did y'all see this? Bodie Page's front fender just kind of fell off and got destroyed. He ran it over himself as he's going down the straight into Canada corner. I thought that was just, a little wild. But, at the end of the race, too, Hank Vosberg was able to avenge his defeat on Saturday and come back and win in his hometown track by less than 0.03 seconds. Second place was Bodie Page, and third was Isaac Woodworth. Jody Berry came home 4th, while Matthew Chapin was in 5th, and Kevin Olmedo was in 6th place. Looking at points now, Hank Vosberg is all alone out in the front with points. He has 177 points already this season. Second place is Matthew Chapin, and he has 115. So Vosberg has a 62-point lead over Matthew Chapin. Now, we're well past now the halfway point of the Twins Cup season. As a matter of fact, there is only 3 weekends left for them to run this year. They're going to be at Mid-Ohio, VIR, and then they'll wrap up their season at New Jersey. With a 62-point lead, now, we have a little bit of a break before Twins Cups will run again. They are not going to be at the Ridge or Laguna Seca, so at the end of July is their next round of Mid-Ohio Sports Car course. And Hank Vosberg could go ahead and skip that one as well if he wants to and extend that summer vacation. Maybe he wants to go backpack Europe or something. He's got the time. But so impressive lead for Hank Vosberg in the championship with 62 points. Bodie Page is in 3rd place with 107. And in 4th place, it is Sam Drain with 98. And then 5 points back from Drain now is Isaac Woodworth in 5th place. He has 93 points. And then Kevin Olmedo wraps up the top 6. He has 72 points, 105 back from the leader, Vosberg. Now we're going to move into our final class of the weekend. And I always say that, this is last but definitely not least. And I really do mean that, because in the past, I say it all the time, if there's bikes on tracks, I'm going to watch it. Well, the BTR, the quality of the competition, not just at the front, but like we're talking through most of the field now, is just such a step up from where it was years ago when they first started, that this has become quite the entertaining class to watch. Brianna Everett was able to win pole on this weekend, and she got the whole shot in race 1 too. And during race 1, we had about 4-ish riders at the front, because Brianna Everett was up at the front, and then a little bit more in a second back behind her was a battle for second between Jasmine Noel and Brianna Cutler, who came into this race leading the championship points. And then just 0.6 seconds back from Noel and Waffles was Taddy Pays in 4th place, and continuing to run more towards the front in the lead group with every single race that she participates in. But with 3 to go, it started to get a little bit more strung out. But then with just 2 laps to go, Jasmine Noel started chasing down and caught Brianna Everett. And not only did she make the attempt to lead going into the turn 5 on the penultimate lap, on the last lap itself, she was able to actually just take the lead of the race. Unfortunately, though, Brianna Cutler had crashed out of 3rd place in a scary fast crash in the carousel. Ended up having to bring out the red flag that ended the race on the last lap. Now, because the red flag came out on the last lap, and I think, well, I don't think it matters if it was the last lap, but the way they do it with the red flags in MotoAmerica is it goes back to the previous results at the start-finish line, so not just the last timing loop. So therefore, when the red flag came out, they went back to the results at the end of the previous lap, and that gave the victory to Brianna Everett in 1st place, and Jasmine Noel was 2nd, with a 2nd podium in a row for Tati Pays in 3rd place, and 4th was Marie Maduro, while Tiffany Vo finished 5th, and Emily Dixon finished in 6th. Race 2 the next day on Sunday, Brianna Cutler had to switch to one of the backup bikes after her crash in race 1. But Jasmine Noel was able to go out there and just got the whole shot. Brianna Everett was able to get by her going into Canada corner with 5 laps to go, but Jasmine Noel was able to retake the lead again the next time going into turn 1. Those two just kept fighting back and forth because Brianna Everett was able to retake the lead going into turn 5, but then unfortunately she went down in turn 6, the next corner, and that was the end of the race for her. With 2 laps to go, Jasmine Noel was way out in front, and Emily Dixon was able to pass Tati Pays at the line for 2nd place, and they kept battling back and forth all the way through to turn 5, where after they got past turn 5, Tati Pays was able to be out front again. She stayed there for good. So at the end of the race 2, Jasmine Noel got her first win in MotoAmerica and at BTR, and she won pretty easily by over 1.5 seconds over Tati Pays in 2nd place. 3rd place was Emily Dixon, and 4th was Tiffany Vo. 5th was Marie Madura. 6th was Brianna Cutler. And then points, leaving the weekend of Wisconsin, Jasmine Noel is our championship leader now. She's been consistently at the front and is the only rider to finish on the podium in every single race so far this year, and she has 85 points to show for that effort. With 62 points and 23 points behind her is Tati Pays in 2nd place, and that's on the strength now. She's had 3 straight podiums in a row, with a third, and now a 2nd in race 2 on Sunday. Brianna Cutler, she came in the championship leader, and she dropped down the order, mainly due to the crash on Saturday and losing points from that. And then, but she still has 60 and is only 25 points behind 1st place. 4th place is Brianna Everett, and she has 57 points. And then there is a tie for 5th place in the standings, and it's between Marie Madura and Emily Dixon. They both have 44 points each, and they're 41 points out of the lead. So that wraps up the action from this past weekend on America's National Park of Speed. And if you haven't noticed, I kind of like that name. If I'm ever appointed like ruler of the universe or anything, I'm going to make that title official. I do really sincerely hope that I'm able to make it up there next year and meet all the wonderful fans that are out there at the track, and maybe even be part of a new attendance record. Well, we have a few weeks now until the next round at the Ridge Motorsports Park, but we're going to continue to have episodes every week. Every Wednesday, I'll be putting something out there for you to help you get through to the next race. Next week, we're going to get to learn a little bit more about the competitors of BTR, while also going over any news that may come out, plus whatever mailbag questions we have. Until we get then, just take care of each other.